Hey folks, thanks for coming for this session. This session is about SQL Server 2022. Exactly 1 year back it was released, and it's wildly growing in popularity thanks to everyone here. How many of you are using SQL Server 22 today? Okay, so you have a lot to learn and know why you need to use it. So we'll cover the entire landscape of features that were introduced in the product and the different scenarios that you can benefit from. Before I get started, feel free to interrupt and ask questions. It's important to learn, and we're also here. If time runs out, we're here after the session, and also both of us and our colleagues are at the booth, Microsoft booth in the expo hall, so please stop by. So quick intro, my name is Ajay Jagannathan. I'm the Principal Group Product Manager for SQL Server and Arc. So our team is responsible for building this product for our customers. And with me I have...
Hi guys, I'm Perry Skundrianos. I work with Ajay, and my current focus is on SQL Engine, QP and storage.
Yep. So and we do have a lot of other SQL sessions from the product team, so this slide gives you a full picture of all the Microsoft sessions here at the conference. So please try and get to as many of these as possible to learn from people who are building this product. So what's on today's agenda? So we will be talking about what SQL Server 22 is, what are the different themes of the product, and we will dive into some areas of the product. Obviously, it'll take a whole week to do the entire product, so I'll give you a gist of this, and then you will walk away with some key takeaways. And we do have deep dive sessions for each specific topics if you are interested in a specific area, right? So SQL Server 22, like I said, it was released in November of last year at PASS Summit, and it's growing well. It's one of the fastest releases of SQL Server from an customer adoption standpoint, which is a good thing to see. And when we look at the product, we broke it into 5 main pillars or themes of areas of the product that we invested in. The first one is built-in query intelligence. Many people here use SQL Server and care about the performance of the product. So the core engine is something we continue to innovate, both in the cloud and on-premises SQL Server. The cloud helps us get instant feedback from millions of databases that are running there today, and it's the same engine that powers both our cloud as well as SQL Server. So a lot of the features you see here are already battle tested and improvised continuously. So when it comes to SQL Server, it's already a solid feature. So here we will dive into intelligent query processing, which is like the bread and butter of the engine from a query performance, and we will look at some of the key features there. And then the next area, this is a big thing. A lot of customers are in either hybrid or multi-cloud strategy, so it's important to integrate with various Azure capabilities so that customers, even though they are running SQL Server, they can still leverage the benefits of some of the services in the cloud. We will look at a few of those. The third category is, like Bob Ward, my colleague, calls it meat and potatoes, and this is where SQL Server has innovated over the last 30 years, and this is something that customers truly depend on the product to provide. And this is covering all the aspects of security and features related there, scalability. As workloads get bigger, hardware systems get bigger, how do you keep up to make sure SQL Server runs its best performance? And availability, downtime is very serious business. So we want to make sure that we minimize downtime for any activities, whether it's maintenance activities, whether it is failovers, whether it is restarts, whatever be the case, we want to continuously invest to make sure that impact is reduced significantly. We will also look at some evolution. That we also realize that a lot of data sits even outside the core database, core relational database. How do we leverage and access these data sources from just sitting in SQL Server instead of having to learn a new language? Many people who use SQL Server are very familiar with T-SQL language and use our tools. So how can you do all this right from within SQL is something we continue to invest in. You will see some examples here. And we'll finally end with some T-SQL investments, because that's an area where we continue to grow. We want to make sure people who write application code or developers who interact with the product or DBAs can build new functionality based on some of the new functions we are seeing as common ask from customers. So that's the overall scope of this session. We will cover areas from each pillar and go into some examples and demos. So before we get there, I want to quickly share how to get started with SQL Server. This slide covers some of the ways you can get SQL Server installed. Some common things, you will see the similar setup experience whether you're using the UI or you use command line, or if you're installing on Linux, the same way to deploy and install packages from whether it's RHEL, Ubuntu, or SLES. You can also install SQL on containers. Nothing has changed there. And SQL Server 22 is also available on virtual machines in Azure as gallery images. So you can just pick that version, and it'll automatically deploy a VM with that version. It's from an OS upgrade. Nothing has changed. It's supported with the latest OS and a couple of previous versions. You can upgrade from all the older versions. In fact, you can even, I hope nobody has SQL Server 2005 or 2008 here. But if you do have those, you can take backups of those and restore it. We do support that. So in the previously, you had to be 2 versions. So you don't have to do like a 2-step restore. You can directly restore older backups. Same thing with compat level. We introduced a new compat level. We'll hear about it today, DB compat 160. But we still support compat level all the way back to 100, which was introduced with SQL 2008. So if you have really, really old applications and you're hesitant to change the old compat, you can keep. And side-by-side is supported with other versions of the product too. So a couple of additions or changes in the SQL Server UI setup that you will see. Right, we have removed some of the capabilities which mostly customers are not using much, or we don't see a big future in these areas. For R, Python, and Java, we used to ship fixed versions. Now we made it bring your own runtime, so that gives you more flexibility to bring latest versions and things instead of the one we just ship with the box. So it helps you more agility. We deprecated some features like Polybase, machine learning server, etc. But we replaced with things like data virtualization and machine learning services, which are currently supported versions. We have not invested in distributed replay or StretchDB, so please don't use them, and try to use some of these new features. Additions that you will see is we have added an Azure extension for SQL Server. This is mainly useful for the cloud-connected pillar I shared, and we will look at some examples of how to use it. We also introduced a new licensing model. You don't have to go and buy traditional license and pay for the whole license if you don't need it, and I'll talk about the scenarios where that's useful. So here's a couple of screenshots. I'll quickly walk through the demo. This is the new setup page you will see when you install the Azure extension for SQL Server. Again, this is optional. If you don't want to use any of the Azure features, you can skip this step during setup. But if you're using any of the cloud-connected features, then you will have to enable it here. So we will take care of all the deployment. And this is the billing page, or the new pay-as-you-go license checkbox. If you don't have an existing license, you can just click this and pay as you go, and I'll show you a quick demo of that. But before I get to the demo, I want to quickly explain what that is. A lot of our customers who are familiar with Azure SQL or even on the VM side, you can get started. You don't have to go through procurement, buy a license, buy a software assurance, and be stuck with the license for 10 years or something if you don't need it for that. Good examples, if you're starting a new project, or if you have scenarios where you have intermittent usage, or if you have if you're in the retail business, for example, if you want to increase capacity for your SQL servers, let's say during the holiday shopping season, and you don't have extra license, and you don't want to buy a 10-year license just for short-term use, pay-as-you-go is a really good scenario there. It means exactly what it says. You can see you can use both standard and enterprise edition through pay-as-you-go. and the monthly rate and the hourly rate are published there. So if you choose this license type, the meter runs at an hourly rate. So if let's say you pick standard edition at pay-as-you-go, it's 10 cents an hour. And as long as that instance is being used, you will be billed at that rate. And let's say you use it for 2.5 months. You will get monthly bills for the first month, end of first month, end of second month. And then the third month, since you didn't use the whole month, you'll be billed for till the last full hour of the period you use. Let's say you use 15 days and 1 hour, your bill will be rounded to 15 days and 1 hour. And then after you decommission the server, that instance will no longer be billed. So it's really good for those short-term scenarios. This also works. This requires Arc-enabled SQL Server, and this works anywhere. What I mean by that is you can use this on your data center. If you have VMs running in AWS or Google, if you Arc-enable them, and you want it for short-term, that works in there too. So it's truly a multi-cloud billing model.
So what happens, Ajay, if I stop the server or the server, I unplugged it?
Yeah, great question. If you accidentally the server stops or disconnects from Azure or it restarts, we still keep track of that, and then we will catch up the billing, right? Let's say you had an outage and then the server went down for 4 hours. That doesn't mean that you stopped using the server. When the server starts back up, we know that there's a gap, and then we will catch up the billing. This is different from completely decommissioning the server. So it's an honor system still. So if you either upgraded the server or uninstall the server, or scenarios where, or you change the billing model, then only then we will completely stop the billing for this. So hope that clarifies the experience. Yes? Good question. If you temporarily stop it and if the service starts back, we'll catch up the bill for those period when it was out. This is not the serverless compute model. This is not like pay as you use, right? This is license as you go, right? It's like a temporary license. We assume that intermittent outages will happen. So unless you completely uninstall the server, we consider that server is an active server, right? So you'll be billed for the period till the service is running. Yes.
Is that rate per core?
Yes, it says on the first column title price per core. Yeah, 10 cents per core per hour for standard and 37 cents for enterprise.
Yeah. This is not meant for the enterprise premium customers, right? Just only for the pay as you go basis.
This does not matter what type of customer you are. You could be a startup and still get it. Anybody can go use this, right? Let's say you want to do a quick POC or a quick test on something, you can just spin up, just like you would on a VM in the cloud, right? So you don't need to have to go find budget, purchase license, and then wait for the license to come through and then enter the key or anything, right?
It doesn't matter whether you're in a cloud or on-premises?
Correct. So this works. In Azure VMs, you already have a pay-as-you-go model. It doesn't make sense to install Arc. But this is mainly for environments outside of Azure. It can be on-premises in your data center. It can also be in VMs running in AWS or GCP. So you just have to install Arc in those VMs. It works on VMware, hypervisor, all platforms. Yeah.
Still the SQL Express exists? SQL Express exists?
Yeah, all the free editions exist, Developer, Express, Eval, so none of those have changed. This is only for Enterprise and Standard, which are paid editions, right? So with that, let me hand it off to Perry to talk about the first pillar, which is the built-in query intelligence.
Yep. Thank you, Ajay. Can you guys hear me okay?
I think it's not on.
On? Okay. So as many of you know, query tuning and performance optimization can be challenging, right? Mediterranean CP company, a great customer of ours, are always looking for ways to improve the workloads, the performance, looking at new technologies. Query Store is one of those features, capabilities, right, that has been around for a while now, and we're improving it in SQL Server 2022. One thing is we're making it on by default for new databases in SQL 2022. We are storing hints and use them in a feedback loop to improve plans. We are enabling it in secondary replicas in availability group. We now have T-SQL command. You can go in and enable the query store to work on the readable secondary replicas as well, so you can use that. And along with that, we're introducing a couple of new capabilities in the intelligent query processing space, or IQP as we call it. Some of those improvements use the query store, some of them don't. Two of them that we're going to drill a little bit more is the DOP feedback and the CE feedback. So again, query store is one of those improvements that has been around for a while. We're improving it on its own, but I want to switch gears a little bit and give you a history or background on the IQP next gen, as we call it. We call it next gen because we keep improving the query processing. It's not something new in SQL 2022. We're building on top of existing improvements. So if you go to SQL 2022 and compatibility level, regardless of any compatibility level, you get these improvements there, right?
Yeah. So if you don't see a number listed there, it means even if you're running 100 compare level, it'll work. So these features don't depend on compare level.
Yeah, so there's approximately percentile and optimized plan forcing. With optimized plan forcing, we can force a specific plan that we store in query store, and then next time that the query runs, we'll use that. If we fail, we revert back to the old ways of query optimizer, the way that it's working. Then if you go one step further and still in SQL 2022, but you go up to DB Compat 140, which, Ajay, remind me, is it SQL 2017? Yep. You get the memory grant feedback improvements, like the percentile and the persistence. And these are sort of cool. I don't know if you guys have played around with those. On runtime, we figure out how much memory a query needs to use, and then optimize and try to get as close as possible there.
Yeah, just to add a little more. So memory grant is basically a grant given to a query when it executes. So before the query starts executing, SQL Server forecasts how much memory that query will need. And in older versions, this was a hit or miss. Sometimes you will see we gave excess of memory, and especially if you have a system where there are hundreds and thousands of queries running, you may run out of memory for some queries because some other query got too much memory, and so it's competing for memory. Or you may be seeing situations where too little memory was given. We inaccurately predicted how much memory a query needs. So in that case, that's where you'll see spills to TempDB and things like that as a paging file. Both of these scenarios can affect performance. So this is a more predictable algorithm where it tries to smoothen. It uses feedback mechanisms to continuously measure how much last time it used, how much, so it'll basically avoid the seesaw pattern of over and under and stabilize the thing. So that way, the concurrency of queries are introduced.
Yeah. The oscillation pattern is very interesting also. So that's 140 or above. And then if you go all the way to DB Compat 160, you get the latest and greatest stuff, right? And these include the PSP optimization. I don't know if you guys have dealt with parameter sniffing. So PSP there is an awesome capability where, let's say you have a store procedure, and depending on the parameter that you pass, we figure out the best plan for that parameter. Because we've seen cases where, as Ajay briefly mentioned, is with store procedure passing a parameter A, you get, let's say, 10 rows, and then you pass a different parameter, and you get a completely different set. And if you use the same plan for those, it's not going to be the optimal performance. Also, we get CE feedback and DOP feedback, which is one of those improvements that we're going to drill a little bit deeper moving forward. Okay. So this is just with SQL 2022, but as I said, and then those little icons tell you which of those improvements depend and work hand in hand with the query store. But this is as I said, improvements and investments in the the query processing space is not new. We've been doing it for a while, and even for customers that do not come directly in SQL 2022 and they come from SQL 16 or onwards, they get additional benefits in the IQP space. So batch mode on raw store
if
was
you're
huge.
before 2016 and you're directly going to 2022, then you will also get the other features which are part of the IQP family listed at the bottom, which were introduced in 2017 and 2019.
Yep. And again, IQP is one of those spaces where we really are trying very hard to get it right all the time, right? So a couple of principles that we operate under is do no harm, right? We don't want to, have performance regressions or stuff like that. And second is we always give you options to turn on and off and use only the features that you really want. So these come with knobs to turn off the ones that you are not interested and don't want to use. So as I mentioned, max DOP and DOP feedback is one of those areas that we'd like to drill down a little bit.
So quick question for everyone. How many of you have to deal with this problem? Like finding the right DOP for your environment, right? It's one of the biggest pain points in SQL Server.
It's one of those things where you ask a set of DBAs and you get different questions. The fact that we have different areas to set that setting, you can set it up on the instance level, database level, query level, resource governor level, makes the pain a little bit more, right? When we first started designing and thinking about the DOP, we always had in mind the max DOP. So what is the maximum degree of parallelism that I can use to make your query run faster? So, and then it goes without saying, right? More DOP means more threads, which means more CPU. And on the other hand, less DOP means less threads, less CPU. Now, with SQL 2022, Ajay, as you know, we're aiming for something called parallel efficiency. What is the minimum degree of parallelism that I can use to give you the same or better performance, but with less resources, with less CPU? In other words, can I have a capability where gradually tries to lower the DOP until it hits the optimum state where performance stays the same or improves, and then resources decrease.
An example to add, which you'll also see in the demo, is even if you set a DOP value, let's say 32, or if you don't set a DOP value, we will figure out what the lowest number we can use and still give you the same performance. For example, let's say you said DOP is 32 for the server, but the query needs only 2 CPUs. We will keep evaluating that till we come down to 2, which will give you the same performance as 32. If it doesn't, then we will use whatever the best value is automatically.
Yeah. A couple of things to note with this one. We never go below max DOP 2. We don't want to turn parallelism completely off. And also, we honor query hints that you might have been using in your query. Yes?
Is this dependent on compatibility mode 160?
This is one of the features that you get when you go to 160.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So with this, do you even need to set max DOP for your?
So that's a very good question, right? I mean, the guidance here that we want to give is don't go back to your workload and start, deleting the query hints, because obviously this has been working for you. But then if you start a new, or even if you want to remove them, right? Enable this feature, will gradually, in a staircase fashion, will try to find the minimum DOP for a specific query.
And we give you, you'll see in the demo, we do have query store queries where you can see the history of execution and what was the right DOP. So it'll also help you set the right DOP in the future if you want to force it. We do understand that a lot of applications have fine-tuned to a specific value. If you're comfortable using that value, please go ahead and use it. Don't change it.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where to start, this is a good way to measure what the right value is to set. Right?
And as I was saying, we will honor the hints that you use on your query. So if you have a query and the max DOP is set to 8, we're not going to try to optimize the query because we're operating under the assumption that you are the expert of that query and you have figured out that that's the ceiling, that's the maximum.
So question there.
That's your 0 means unlimited, right?
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
So you said we cannot put less than 2.
correct.
2 and 0 that don't, so 0 is also parallelism. 1 is not parallelism. 1 is serial.
Yeah.
So less than 2 means 1, not 0. 0 is, think of 0 as infinity in this case.
Yeah. Good point.
So one more thing you said when you upgrade, it helps when you do the in-place upgrade, right? That's why they want to have a max job as it is. That would be the possibility. When you upgrade SQL.
Yeah, we don't change what you have already set. We will honor whatever settings. At the server level and database level, if you have max DOP, this will work. If at the query level, if you have used max DOP, we will not override that.
Within the query.
Correct.
So one more question, like you said, we can do the in-place upgrade, right? For example, when you remove the R, Python, and everything, then how can you do the in-place upgrade on those features?
So it'll remove those features. So you will have to bring your own runtime to do this, yes.
Yep. So this is, moving on a little bit, this is a high-level architecture slide for the DOP. You can see here query store is required for this feature to be turned on. As I mentioned, you need to be under 160 and you need to explicitly turn DOP feedback on, and also the query store needs to be on. So we use a query store background task to get input from the queries, real-time query hints. And then we determine if the query is eligible for DOP feedback. If we don't look at queries that are super fast, like in milliseconds, and we don't look at queries that have not been executed for multiple times. So one-time queries or running a query one time, it's not going to be eligible for DOP feedback. So once a query is eligible, and I'll show you that in a demo, in a staircase fashion, we lower the DOP, we try the execution, we monitor two things, the execution of the query and the CPU, and once we read that stable level, we store that in query store, and next time that the query executes, uses the updated DOP value from the query store. And because we persist it there, it survives restarts and failovers and all those things. So the next is a quick demo. This is a recorded demo that we have that looks at the DOP. So let me play the recording. Here we have a store procedure that we have forced to use parallelism because of a missing index. The current setting of the DOP is 32. So we go in, as I mentioned, you need to be under 160 to use that feature, and there is this alter database command to turn the DOP feedback on. So here we're switching to X events. You don't need, obviously, X events to use this feature. And we monitor two things, as I mentioned, the execution of the query and the CPU. Every time that we try a new value for the DOP, we run a couple of steps, and I'm going to pause the recording here a little bit. So you see that we started from value 32, and then we went down to value, I cannot see this, 8. Is it 20? 20, and then the next value, 16. And every time that we use a new value, we run those steps, right? Is the performance okay? Is the CPU okay? All those validations. If they look okay, we go one step down. So in this example, we went from 32 all the way to 8, but we figured out that 8 actually increases the CPU, and we reverted back to 12. So you see, let me resume the video. You see here that this is the event that says, okay, this is the value that we're going to use, 12. It's stabilized. And this is the reasoning for 8, and this is the value. So again, as I mentioned, in a staircase fashion, went from 32 to all the way to 12. We have a DMV where you can query and look under the hood, right? In this particular example, you see the DOP feedback entry, and then on the details, you see how long the query took, what was the value, right? 12. We have memory feedback kick in here, but that's another another improvement. And then switching lastly to query store reports, right? We monitor two things: the execution milliseconds. You see, we started from all the way up there, going all the way down gradually. So the execution improved, and also the CPU, the same fashion, started improving every time that we tried lower values. So one of my favorite features, I'm very excited about this.
The biggest benefit is you're freeing up your extra CPU resources for increased concurrency, right?
Yep. So with that, I think I'm going to pass it to Ajay in the next section to talk about the awesome cloud-connected capabilities of SQL Server 2022.
Yeah, so this pillar will connect, we talked earlier about Arc extension in the setup page, which enables some of these cloud-connected features. Let's briefly look at what they are. And before I get there, it's important to know why we did it, right? So as many of you know, SQL Server releases every few years, 2 to 3 years sometimes is what the frequency we have kept with. But at the pace at which we are innovating in the cloud, many customers who run into either scenarios where they want to use some features which are already available in Azure SQL, or if they have feedback on existing features and they want us to improve those features, they had to wait for the next version, and which means you have to wait for 2 to 3 years. Plus, it also requires an upgrade. So if you don't want to upgrade, then it creates a problem for you, right? So we thought, okay, what are some of the key scenarios where customers can benefit the innovation in the cloud from the current version they are? So that's the history behind the introduction of this cloud connected. So what are these features? The first one is managed instance link. So this helps with customers who are doing a couple of different scenarios. One is to basically use your managed instance as your target for either DR, for migrations, or for reporting. I'll dive deeper into that. Next one is analytics. As you folks know, Synapse Analytics, which is also now part of Fabric. So if you want to replicate your data from your SQL Server to do analytics in the cloud warehouse, that's the next one. The next three are related to security. Like we introduced Azure Active Directory authentication. So this helps you simplify your authentication model. And then Purview brings governance. And finally, Defender helps you protect your environment with vulnerability assessment. And that protection, I'll talk a little bit of each of these. And the last part is Arc-enabled SQL Server. This helps you with other data management capabilities I'll talk about. So the last 4 things which are in gray boxes are part of our Arc extension. So once you install the Arc extension, these 4 features automatically get available for you. The first 2 features, you don't need Arc today. In the future, it might come through Arc. So you can directly go from SQL Server to either of those without using Arc.
And if I have an older version of SQL Server, Ajay, is this only for 2022? If I am running 19, for example?
Good question. Some new features will work only with 2022. For example, AAD and Purview, since they are dependent on AAD. Features like Defender or Managed Instance Link will work with older versions too. Yeah. So let's look at each of those what scenarios, right? So the Managed Instance Link addresses a big channel, right? Setting up DR is a complex thing, and managing the DR environment is also an extra work for a lot of customers. So with this, we are providing customers a managed DR service, right? So all we have to do is set up a link between your source SQL Server and managed instance in the cloud. Then everything becomes automatic. Right? You can read more about it at the aka.ms mi link. Couple of things in case you didn't hear. If you are using the managed instance as a DR instance, which means it's a standby server with no workload running, then we actually give it to you without any license cost, right? You only have to pay the compute. So it's a license-free DR. Just like on premises, if you have software assurance, you don't have to pay for the license for your secondary standby servers. And you can do online failovers, which is available in public preview now. Yes, sir. So great question. I'll get to that. So if you're using it as pure disaster recovery, which means no workloads are running, including read workloads, then it's a DR. If you start using it for reporting or other workloads, then it's considered that you're using those instances. Then it'll cost you the cost of the service itself, right?
Better question. If our on-prem server is in a certain Azure AD environment and we want to do a target in a totally different tenant of Azure AD, is that can work, no problem?
As long as there's connectivity and authentication, federation, it should work, yes. A little bit of how this setup works, right? You have a source SQL Server on the left. You have a managed instance on the right. Some of the prerequisites like Azure connectivity, so assuming you have private link or express route set up between these two and you have a mirroring endpoint. The best thing is you don't need to have any availability groups. It can be a standalone SQL Server. Or if you have an existing availability group, we will use that to set it up. In this example, let's say you already have an availability group, you can continue to use on-prem. And so the third step is basically, as part of the setup, we will create what's called a distributed availability group. It joins your source SQL Server and your managed instance and creates like a parent availability group, or we call it distributed availability group. And that basically establishes the link. And once the link is established, the database from the source side, so the database doesn't need to exist on the secondary. We will replicate the database and any changes subsequently if you're running transactions, just like when you're setting up always on in your on-premise environment. And it'll start seeding your secondary and it'll stay in sync. So the managed instance will stay in sync. The speed of sync depends on your network and other latency factors, but it's almost near real time on a good network. And the secondary is available for three purposes, like I said. You can leave it as is. It's just a standby in case disaster happens, it fails over. Or if you want to use it for reporting, you want to offload your reporting, you can point your reports to that server. Or in the future, let's say you want to migrate, you can to Azure. You can just fail over your instance. So it's as simple as that. Yeah.
So think about the primary is down. The web app is pointing to the primary server right now. And when the server goes down on the primary, how they have to change the connection string to point to the DR server, or it automatically taken care of?
So you have to change the connection string.
Connection string to point to the new server.
Correct. So this is now in public preview, this link. It was in limited preview till before this event. You can also do offline DR, right? So one of the things we did is managed instance. Previously, you could not take a backup from the cloud and restore it on SQL Server because the cloud was always ahead. So one of the things we did with SQL 22 and managed instances, we did a version match, database version match, which means you can go both ways, right? You can take a backup of SQL Server and restore it on managed instance, which you could already do previously. Or if you're running your managed instance in the cloud, and let's say, hey, you want to export the backups for your on-prem or other regulatory reasons, you want to keep a copy of backup with you, you can stop the workload on-prem, take backups, copy only backups, and then restore those backups. The reason this works is the actual storage format for both versions are same, the 957 that you see there. We try to keep it the same so that you can go back and forth between in either direction. So the next area of cloud investment is Arc-enabled SQL Server. So this one, think of scenarios where you are running a hybrid or multi-cloud scenario. Like I said, pay-as-you-go billing is available in any cloud you want to run. But a lot of customers today run their SQL servers in many, many environments, right? It could be on premises, it could be in private hosted environments, it could be in public clouds and other clouds. how do we extend the benefits of Azure to such environments so that you have a single control plane or management plane for your environment. So this is where Arc comes in. Arc basically is an extension which you install with your SQL Server, and it creates a resource in Azure, and then everything can be centrally managed. You can look at all your licenses. We give you free best practice assessments. We give you all the security features for like Defender, Purview, and authentication. So and also the overall inventory. You could look at all the versions of your SQL Server, what editions they're running, what versions they're running, and helps give you a single plane to manage the entire environment.
Do I have to do anything, or just connect and then I go to
Yeah,
Azure
as soon as you
and-
install the extension, you will
It's
get
there.
access to all these features.
Got it,
Right.
got it.
Let's look at some of these features, like Azure Active Directory authentication. So a lot of customers want to centralize this authentication to a single managed service instead of having to set up domain controllers everywhere. Especially let's say you have databases running in cloud, you have on premises, and you're also using other Azure services which uses AAD.
Yep.
Simplify your authentication using AAD. AAD also has other benefits like multi-factor authentication, as well as single sign-on, etc. So it gives you many more benefits than your old Windows authentication does. The next thing is Purview, governance. Right? Governance is a very important thing nowadays. You want to make sure you control the access to your environments. Don't give sysadmin or higher level access to high privileged access to all your users. Right? So you can give role-based access, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, Defender. Defender keeps your SQL Server protected from attackers, malicious users, etc. So it has vulnerability assessments. It scans your environment, and industry-specific things like FedRAMP, or let's say you're in the healthcare industry or NIST. It runs rules specific to those and helps you secure environment to recommended best practices. It also has threat protection from things like SQL injection attacks, so you can plug in those things and block connections. So and going through Arc, Defender is actually almost 80% cheaper than using it directly. So that's another reason why you would use it. So let's talk a little bit about Purview, and then let's take a look about this. So Purview is our managed governance service. It works not just for SQL Server, but for many other data services in Azure, right? Today, if let's say you have 100 or 1,000 SQL servers in their environment, managing permissions individually at SQL Server level is a nightmare, right? You need to keep track of what access you give to everybody and when you give them access, when you need to revoke the access. Tracking all that at the individual server, instance by instance, is a pain. So this is where Purview can offload that thing by centrally doing it outside of SQL Server. You basically create policies in Purview where you can say, hey, I want to create a data role, which means these are users who will need access to just do read-only access. Let's say you are business analysts. All they need is data access to build reports. They don't need write access. Or you may be having other users who may also need write access, which is the modify role. Or the second category is DevOps, right? Like you may have, like if you have SREs in your company whose main focus is to work with incident management, troubleshooting performance, things like that, performance monitoring, or you want roles just for security auditing. So you have all these predefined roles, and you add the roles to add the users to those roles, and then you can deploy at scale to all your SQL servers. You can also do some things which are coming in the future, which is available in SQL DBs, like just-in-time access, right? Because Purview also helps you explore data. Let's say somebody is searching Purview and they want to access to, let's say, some sales table. They can request an access from there without knowing who the owner of that table is. It'll send the request to the owner of the table to approve access, and it'll automatically grant read permissions. So a lot of these things can be done centrally through Purview. It brings that governance. So recently, a lot of these features were available last year, but the bottom section has a list of features we added recently around programmatic stuff, adding support for SQL running on Linux, and more importantly, simplifying the onboarding of SQL Server to Purview. So let's quickly take a look at the demo for Arc-enabled SQL Server, right?
Generally available for the customer?
Yes,
Everyone
yes,
is available?
yes. Okay, so the first demo here I'll show you is the setup. I said pay-as-you-go billing, right? So all you have to do is, you don't need to have a license. Let's say you're installing SQL Server and you need and standard or enterprise. You would just check that box, pick the edition you want. In this example, I picked standard since that's sufficient for my use, right? And then when I click next, it'll basically prompt me to enter my Azure subscription details, right? I log into my Azure account. Once I log in, I pick my subscription, my resource group, what I want to deploy, as well as the region. The main thing I want to tell is this is not where SQL Server is deployed. This is where the Arc resource is deployed, right? And I'll show you what happens when it happens. So for every SQL Server you install when you Arc-enable, we create a resource in Azure which connects this SQL Server to Azure, and it also helps you see all your SQL servers in Azure in a central place. So this is how you Arc-enable your SQL Server. Let's say you have 1,000 plus SQL servers. You can't be doing setup one at a time. So we do have policies you can deploy. You can download a script from Azure, and then which you will see in the next demo. And you can take that script. If you have a group policy in your environment, you can put it in the group policy as a batch file, and it'll run the PowerShell. You can also use third-party tools, like if you have Tivoli or if you have our own System Center, you can add the script there and it'll deploy it through your environment. So there are ways to do it at scale. So in this demo, we'll see how to use Arc now that we've installed it. So I have a SQL Server 2020, in this I have a SQL Server 2019 instance, and I'm going to show you how to Arc-enable this, and we'll see all the features which I just talked about, right? So let's go back to the portal. And in the portal, the way I Arc-enable that instance is I can click that tile and then add connect, right? Because this is not 2022, so it's not part of setup. And then I assume I already have the networking prerequisites. So I pick the resource group where I want to install this Arc resource, the region where I want to install. Then I can pick the license type I want. If I already have an existing SQL Server license, standard enterprise, then you don't need to change anything, right? You just pick that license. You can say I've already paid for the license, so you just pick paid. So we don't, if you don't have a license, you can take pay-as-you-go, then it'll start billing you as a pay-as-you-go license. If you have already bought the license, if you already have SQL Server running, that means you're telling us that I don't want another license, right? So just Arc-enable this. Yes. Then it gives you the script. You take this PowerShell script and download it. Again, use this method only if you're doing one instance at a time. Otherwise, you can take the script and put it in your management tools, and they'll do it, right? So I'm going to go run this in PowerShell, and this takes only a couple of minutes to run. It Arc-enables the server. It installs the SQL Server extension on that machine. And then once it's installed, here you can see all my SQL servers which are Arc-enabled in a single place, right? Think of this as a good place to start understanding what you have in your environment. So it's a good place to have a central inventory experience for all your SQL servers. And all the regions you see there are where this resource exists in Azure. SQL Server could be running in any data center or in AWS or GCP. Now let's go to one of the SQL servers, right? Now instantly you can see what version it is, what edition it is, what licensing mode. In this case, I'm using pay-as-you-go. You can see the right there. So and how many cores I'm using. So you can keep track of your license information there. I can also drill down at the database level. If I click all the databases, it shows me all the database properties. And then you can run queries, which I'll show you some examples. You can look at all the common properties people care about, like database compat level, if all the other best practices are turned on, etc., like backups, when was the last backup taken, and things like that. So this will help you drill down to individual database level. But you can also write queries to view at the data center level, which will be the next part of the demo, right? So let me go back to the a list of all my SQL servers. And what I can do here is build a report, right? We basically go to that page and say, click the Query Explorer. You can, and we have sample query templates. This data dashboard is also available on GitHub. You can download it and import it as a template in your subscription, and you will get a view like this. So let me pause here. So how many people struggle to do this today in your environment, right? If you have thousands of SQL servers, it's very hard to get a full picture of your environment, right? So here I can see all the different compat levels I'm using, right? So for example, if you want to use the new QP features, you will know, okay, all these ones which are old will not be able to use, so I can go figure out how I need to use. What are all the different versions you're using? This will help you plan your upgrades. Like I have 2008 and R2 or 2012 which are out of support already, right? Which means if you run into issues, there is no support for you. You're at your own risk. And a lot of companies also get federal fines depending on your industry if you're running out of support software. So it's important to plan your migration to Azure or upgrade on premises, right? So those are some of the insights. And you can we expose a lot of properties. You can write a query and click generate chart here, and you can add it to your dashboard. So if, oops, let me.
What are the map tool? Still exist?
It is deprecated. So this functionality is going to help you replace a lot of that. No, I'll do video. I think it's here, lower. What's going on? Give me 1 second.
So quick question while you figure that out, Ajay, can you multitask?
Yeah.
So that script, if I run it, if I have multiple databases, does it discover all the databases and connects them? Do you know?
Correct, yes. So it automatically connects all the instances across all databases. Even if it's running failover clustered, we will detect which is primary and which is secondary. So you get those insights too. So let me restart this. 1 second.
Still you can have named instance.
Yes.
So when you run the PowerShell script, right, that meant for the Windows server or the SQL instances? The PowerShell script you copy from the Azure.
You run it on the PowerShell window,
Okay.
and it is specific to the SQL Server running on that environment.
Okay, any number of SQL.
Correct.
Can you automate it? Because in order to be part of the centralized tool, whatever it's called, right? You have to have an extension, you have to enable each SQL Server instance to be Arch-enabled.
Yes.
So in order to run the script you just showed us, can you automate it across multiple?
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, you can use group policies if you have in your environment, or if you have tools like System Center or IBM Tivoli, like central management tools, you can attach the script as a batch file there, and it'll deploy to all your environments. Is the video still running?
So it is,
Oh, I think it needs to be done here.
so I have to run the script.
Uh,
We need to run the PowerShell script every time we install the SQL instance? Because
yes, yes.
Yeah. And that creates the connection to Azure where you get all these benefits. You see it in the portal. If the server goes away or something, you have to reconnect it. It doesn't remember it. It's not persistent. Yeah.
Do you have to have a license for the, because you mentioned that it's an Azure portal, right?
Yes.
So
You need to have a subscription in Azure, right?
Yeah.
So this centralizes your entire estate. Think of this as a dashboard you'll come to look at all your SQL servers in a single place and look at all these different properties, right? Like what kind of licenses you have. You can also set up specific tiles. These are all just queries behind this. Here I'm looking at how many databases have no backup. So if you have a disaster, that means very likely that you lose the database. So it helps you catch issues like that.
Can you put a options machine side to get a notification?
Repeat the question, yeah.
Existing database is not backed up kind of instances?
No, not today, but that's something we can look at automation in the future. Yeah.
Yes.
This is on the licensing side. So let's say you were running SQL Server 2022 from a AMI or either from AWS or is included in the cost of the VM, the EC2 instance. And could you, it's pre-configured when you get the EC2, can you still go and configure the managed instance link after the SQL Server is configured?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Go back.
All this can be done during setup or afterwards, right? It doesn't matter.
Think about you have the SQL on the Google side, GCP side. Still it disconnects?
If it's running in VMs, yes. Not their PaaS service. We don't have access to their PaaS environment, right? Same thing with RDS, we don't have access. Yeah. So let's continue with the demo. Next part of the demo is to show you the best practice assessments. So let me play this. It was moving, right?
It paused. I think it's going now.
Yeah. How are we doing on time? Is it moving? Okay, here. So best practice assessments is also another capability, as you can see. And this can be run on a schedule. So you can configure the schedule it runs, and you can see a few historical runs that were finished. This is basically a collection of all the rules Microsoft, through our support and our own direct engagement with customers, we have learned issues and common things that we should alert customers proactively. So that's this tool. And it gives you a dashboard with different things. Here you see categorized by severity and also type of thing, whether it's administrative or application. And at the top you have the charts, at the bottom you have specific rules that we ran. And you can see things which we consider high impact, medium impact, low impact. So these are the ones you need to take attention, right? For example, on the right you have the instant file initialization, which is a recommended best practice to reduce performance like autogrow related when the queries are running. So if you click on that, it'll tell you which databases could be impacted and gives you links to your documentation to read more about that specific recommendation. And then if you click on the second tab, you can see history, right? This helps you understand all the issues we discover every time the assessment runs and how many have you addressed proactively. So think of this as your task or backlog, right? You want to make sure that this chart is always healthy so that you don't leave many unattended issues, right? So that way your environment stays healthy.
Do you have recommendations for the issues?
Yes, so on the yeah, if I go back a little bit, I can show you.
will it provide the inventory of all the jobs you have across all the instances?
Jobs, not yet. Today we only have databases. That's something we can look at if it's interest, right? So here's all the issues. If you click on any issues, it'll give you the recommendation on what you need to do. Okay. So now we'll go to the third pillar, and I'll hand it off to Perry to cover that.
Thank you.
Talk about only the database engine, right? We have too many components in the SQL, like the analysis services,
Yeah.
report service. So we don't cover all those things here. 2022 is very common.
So good question. Our team is primarily responsible for the core engine. We have other teams like the Power BI team and the Data Factory team who own those products.
See, no one talks about RSA, no one talks about AI.
Yeah,
There's a alien to that.
good question. Yeah, it's a good question. I would ask them to answer those, right? Because they are the owners, so they can talk about what their plans are on those areas.
Yeah, but maybe we can follow up offline and see, what's your scenario, or maybe something we
need to
can
speed up.
Yep.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
So innovations do not stop at the areas that Ajay covered, right? The engine is very important to us, so we keep innovating on the database engine. So in the security, we have Ledger for SQL Server, which is our blockchain technology in a container environment, SQL Server. On the scalability, the hands-free TempDB improvement starting from SQL 2017, I think, with a couple of options there. And now we're taking care of the SGAM and GAM optimization, and we're closing on that problem. And finally, on the availability, we have a couple of improvements there, contain availability groups, which we'll talk a little bit more in detail, as well as snapshot backups. Now we give you through T-SQL the option to freeze and thaw the database, so you can take your snapshot backups, and as well as optimizing the compression of the backups, right, with Intel. So these are, as I mentioned, many innovations in the SQL engine space. We don't have a lot of time to cover all of them here in this session, but let's drill down in a couple of them. So the first one is Ledger. Ledger is the blockchain technology in SQL Server. Again, for those of you who are not moving to a decentralized solution, this is the option to have it in SQL Server. It's using cryptography 256, I think, Ajay, to hash values. It's built into SQL Server. And here's a quick sort of animation. We have two flavors of tables for Ledger. You can create updatable Ledger tables where we allow updates and deletes, or append-only tables where we block the deletes and updates on the API layer. So here in this example, I'm creating an updatable table, and automatically I'm getting the history for that table. And then we give you what we call a ledger view, so you can see a holistic view of your data and do not have to switch between the historical view and the current view. But here is where the blockchain technology comes in. For every row and every update and every change, we store it in those blocks. Every 30 seconds or so, we create one of these blocks and we chain them. And then we offload to a trusted storage. That can be like an Azure blob. And we do that to enable external auditors, for example, to go connect through a store procedure through that data and verify that the data have not been tampered. So that's the whole premise, which maybe I missed in the beginning. This is the whole premise, to make sure that the data have not been changed, and prove that either internally to auditors internally, DBAs, or external auditors. So very exciting technology. And then the cool thing about it is it's available across SQL editions. Even in Express, you can go in and play around with it. And today I was speaking with the team, Ajay, and Ledger is GA in MI today.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's
question?
exciting.
When you say trackable, right? So think about trackable only for the ID of AD, Windows account or Azure account. Think about I have a SQL account and tampering it. How can you identify that? How can you identify the end user? Everybody has the same account using it, right? How do you know that person tampered the data?
So that's a good question, right? I mean, I think using SA account for all the connections is a bigger problem to begin with. There is no easy, I mean,
It comes with application best practices too on how you are authenticating, right? Which is why lot of the recommendations today is not to use SQL accounts and move to a centralized auditing accounts like AAD, because SQL accounts means you're also saving password inside SQL Server, right? So that's also a high risk. Yeah.
Yep.
Here's a question for you. So are these services paid for? Are they part of the licensing, or are they part of the Azure licensing? So we have a SQL 2022 server on-prem. It has that Azure link. Are these services free, or are they paid through the Azure?
These are
It depends on the service. Like Ledger is free. It's not a Azure service, right? If you offload to Azure storage, then you pay for the Azure storage, right? Like if you're using MI Link, you will pay for the MI service. If you use Synapse Link, you'll pay for the Synapse Link. Arc is free by itself, like inventory and other things you get free. So it really depends on what you're using on the other side. Right?
So moving on to another.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So, back to
Go
the
back.
slide. So with this ledger, you will be able to track the changes of data, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But will you be able to see who did it?
Yes. That's the whole premise, right?
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to how you design this also, right? If you designed it the right way, for example, like his question was, if I use a SQL user, a single username and password for all the users of the company, then you will not know which individual did it, right?
Just add the device name.
Yeah, I mean, if you I think we do track IP address and things like
Yeah,
that.
something you can.
So, but you will be able to pinpoint who, what, when, why, those kind of questions from audit
Because
perspective.
we often get, I mean, the core system we use, it has some kind of audit tables.
Yeah.
Right? But oftentimes we would get a request from business asking who did it.
Yeah.
Or like,
Yeah.
who went and changed on the claim something.
And the other big difference from your own audit that we have inside SQL is this also prevents from owners of the instance from tampering, right? Or tracks that.
DBAs.
Like, DBAs were usually SA on the server. If they went and changed it,
We'll record the
because if
change.
they created the audit tables, they can change anything in the table, right? Database. So this can actually offload the hash to an external storage which they don't have access to. It's separation of roles, right? So that way, if an external auditor comes, like if there was a malicious IT admin or DBA, it'll know, right? That's the thing.
And you said this is a free option with the 2022.
Yeah, all editions. It's available in all editions. Yes. Security features are usually available in all editions because that's our principle to make sure that all SQL servers are secure by default. So we don't put it under a paid edition or something. Yeah. Yeah.
In the screen it shows SQL Server 2022. Another shot I saw SQL Server 2020 ABC. What is that? Two different things?
Where?
The previous slides. Yeah, I didn't see.
Oh, those are just examples. It's just mass, right? There's no version like that.
Yeah, I know, that's what you know. It's short, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just it's
Okay,
coming up.
let's move on.
So moving a little bit to the next area here, contained AGs. Contained AGs are always-on availability groups that include some managing metadata objects like users, loggings, and SQL agent jobs, and also some parts of master system databases, MSDB and master. So if you see in the dotted square, I have my user database, but also you see these two system databases, and that enables us, when we fail over, to carry those. So imagine you're building, you have a SQL agent job on the primary, and then you fail over within a contained availability group. At the end of the day, you will get a job that it knows its
Previously,
context
system
as well.
system databases were not replicated, so you have to manually make sure all the logins exist, all the jobs exist.
Yep.
Now they're all included as part of the availability group, so it simplifies your
Yeah.
application experience when you fail over.
Yeah, so if you have jobs, for example, where they test where they run, what their environment is, am I running on primary, am I running on secondary, with contained availability groups, this
Yeah.
can be simplified.
What about the report server database? That is treated as system DB or is it this?
I believe it can be
MS.
part of an availability group. I have to check. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the contained AGs, does that include SSIS DB?
Similar question to his report server. I have to check. If we can come to the booth later, we can check on the documentation. Yeah.
So we have a quick demo on container availability groups. Again, a quick recording here. Is it here? Yep.
Space.
Yeah. So we have a container availability groups defined here with 2 Azure VMs. You notice here, this is a cluster type none to keep things simple, and then we're using the keyword contain to create this availability group. So here I'm connected to the instance where I see 3 databases. One is my user database, and the other 2 is the master and the MSDB, as we described in the previous slide. And then here going on the AG, I see my primary, my secondary, and again, these 3 databases. I also have an agent job, a SQL agent job here that we don't see here, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We have a couple of options to connecting to the AG. So if we switch to another SSMS session, now we're connected directly to VM1 within the context of the database. And that you notice that we don't see the system databases anymore. And still under jobs, we have this test job. So if we switch to another SSMS, connect to the second VM, right? Same deal, we see the job there. So the demo is to force a failover from primary to secondary. So I'm clicking next here. I'm selecting my second VM here, and I'm connecting to it. I click the option for potential data loss because this is a clusterless contained AG. Connecting to the second VM, and click next and finish so I can issue the failover. And the result here is that you will see later on the video that the job actually is now on the second VM. We don't see it yet because, again, we have used the connection directly to the instance. But when we switch to another SSMS session here, you will see the job. This is the VM2. But lastly, switching to another SSMS session and connecting to VM1, you will see the job. So the idea here is simplifying all those system object metadata logging. They are now, if they're part of a contained AG, they will be carried over to after a failover.
Yep.
If you have a replication, it will be copied on the jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of minutes. Let's quickly cover data virtualization. So as I mentioned in the beginning, how do we leverage and connect to data sources outside of SQL Server? So this is where data virtualization comes in. If you remember, 2016 introduced Polybase. So this is an evolution of that by adding more scenarios, right? So we already had open row set and external table access in previous. One of the key things that were missing in SQL Server, which SQL Data Warehouse had, was create table as select, or CTAS, right? So you can actually export your table from SQL and dump it to Parquet or Delta files, right? Now we have introduced the HTTP REST API to connect to different data stores like Azure Blob Store, Azure Data Lake Store, or even S3 compatible, which is an open object storage protocol introduced by Amazon. So if you have any S3 compatible storage, you can use the T-SQL API to just export it there. And we support, in addition to CSV and text, now we added support for Parquet and Delta. So with CTAS, you will easily be able to export all your data sets, and it can use, actually it's a good archiving scenario. If you have a huge database, if you want to archive a lot of data to cold storage in any of these storage systems, you can use create table as select, use partitioning, and then actually export the partition to one of these storage places, and still have access to the data, but manage your databases better. So that's one scenario. We also use the S3 API to introduce, if you remember, we have backup restore to URL. Now we have also added backup restore to S3. So if you have a S3 storage, you can do backup to S3 device, any of these storage supported things. In fact, if you're running SQL Server in AWS and you do a backup to S3 there using this feature, you can take the backup and restore it in any SQL server running anywhere, in Azure, in on-premises, and things like that. So that's another way to export data from any of the SQL servers running in any clouds. So really neat feature. We still support the old poly-based services. So if you're connecting to all these data sources like Oracle, Teradata, MongoDB, etc., you can still do that with the same feature. So the last but not least, let me hand it back to T-SQL to Perry, and we'll wrap up.
Continuing again with innovation, we continue again on the language front. In SQL 2022, we have enhancements and extended support for JSON. JSON has been around for a while now, but we're making it a little bit better. Now you have the option of distinguishing what kind of JSON string there is, object or an array, and also additional capabilities to check for specific columns for JSON path. Also, core T-SQL function for ANSI compatibility and industry standards. We even have bit functions here in SQL 2022 for those of you who are looking for it. And then lastly, we have new T-SQL functions to process time series-based data. So again, a lot of improvements in the language throughout these three categories.
A lot of this is based on feedback coming to us from customers and community, so please keep providing that to us.
Yeah.
We can skip.
Close it?
Yeah.
So we looked at a lot of stuff in this little time. We looked at the fact that SQL Server 2022 is Azure-enabled, right? We briefly looked at a couple of capabilities in the built-in query intelligence, IQP. Ajay talked about data virtualization and object storage. We touched on the multiple innovations on security, scalability, and availability. And we closed by showing you a couple of the enhancements on the T-SQL language.
Yeah, and all the videos which are there in the deck, you'll have access to the deck. And if you unmute it, you can also actually hear the actual example being the voiceover for the video itself. So it'll be a good way to learn. Yeah.
So with that,
yep. Please do the session evaluation, and here's a ton more free resources. This deck, all the demos, we have everything on GitHub, and many other things like blogs, etc. Leverage all these assets to become an expert in SQL Server 22. Thanks for coming, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the week.